Welcome to Mr. Biz Radio, biz talk for biz owners. If you're ready to stop faking the funk and take your business onward and upward, this show is for you. And now, here's Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth.
All right, welcome to another episode of Mr. Biz Radio. Me, Mr. Biz, Ken Wentworth. And we're going to talk about something this week that is going to hit on with everybody, stress. And it's particularly maybe even this time of year. I think a lot of people, as they maybe have their goals for the year, they have their resolutions, they're feeling a little bit of pressure, stress levels going up, have expectations, ambitions for the year, and starting to really, turn up the volume on a lot of things you might have going on in personal and professional lives. And I think it's, one of those times of year where it's, the stress levels are super high. Can be high all 12 months of the year, obviously. But we're going to talk this week with Mr. Christopher Lee Maher. At age of 22, he was a Navy SEAL in his prime with a sleek 1.8% body fat. Like many high-performing athletes, he dealt with joint pain on a semi-consistent basis. Over time, that escalated to pain in every joint. Through intense pain, Maher devoted all his energy, time and resources seeking out answers to alleviate his discomfort. Eventually finding relief, Maher applied learned techniques and worked on himself 5 to 6 hours every day for 7 years. Talk about dedication. He went on to study at the Pacific College of Oriental Medicine and the Yosan University, where he learned traditional Chinese medical practices in Western science and pathology. His knowledge and experience led him to develop a comprehensive system of total physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual healing, and the integration, the true body intelligence technology, which we're going to talk about. Christopher, welcome to Mr. Biz Radio.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. I've been excited to have this conversation with you because, again, I think I'm anxious to find out more about, and we're going to talk about probably a little bit more in the second segment about your true body intelligence, ways to reduce stress, things like that. But before we dive into all that, tell us a little bit about your journey overall. Obviously, a fascinating background.
My journey, very interesting because this is biz, which is business. My journey started out, I was in college, and before that, I went to a boarding school for 10 years. And then when I got to college, I sort of like had free reign, and I had no idea how to manage moving around the world with that much space. And so it took me about 13, 14 months, and I decided to leave school. And then I moved home and I opened up a sandwich shop called the Hoagie King, which was very close to an industrial park in Pennsylvania. And one of my friend's moms decided to come visit me, and she said, "Look, I got this opportunity for you to come up to Kutztown, where Kutztown University is, and you can move in with me and my husband and my daughter until you figure out what it is you really want to do." Because after about 6 months of the sandwich shop gig, I just got tired of waking up at 4:30 in the morning to go pick up cold cuts. And I was like, I'm like, 19 years old. Like this is too much. This is too much reality for a very young person. And while I was helping them move their homes, there was a biannual magazine about SEAL training in the SEAL teams. And I picked up the magazine, and on the cover, there were 8 boat crews of guys. And in the boat crew, there's 7 guys. And there's a telephone pole on every one of their shoulders. And they're running down the beach, grimacing faces, oceans on the left, and from that picture, I thought, wow, these people can really sort of give me the challenge that I'm looking for. And so that's how I got started.
So walk us through the process. So I'm a little bit unfamiliar. I mean, you don't just go, "Hey, I want to be a SEAL," right? I mean, there's a whole process involved with that. What is that process? I'm curious because I've heard bits and pieces about it, but I don't know exactly how it all works.
Yeah, well, the first step is you have that idea that you want to be a SEAL, and I got a very strong guttural response. And then I found a recruiter in Reading, Pennsylvania, and I went down there, I took an ASVAB test, and from the ASVAB scores that I produced, I was able to get a contract to be able to go to SEAL training, or so I thought, right? And this recruiter, look, these guys have to produce numbers.
Right.
So they got me in the door, but they never finished the deal on getting me straight to SEAL training, which would have been giving me what was called at the time a dive fair program. And that meant that if I went through SEAL training and I didn't make it, I had a right to leave the military, because they knew that guys that came in to be Navy SEALs strictly, if they didn't make it and you sent them to the regular fleet, when they got there, they were very disenchanted
Mm.
and they weren't very good Navy guys. And so they created this loophole. Well, he didn't give me the loophole. So I went to boot camp. I was there for, I think, 9 weeks or 13 weeks, however long it is. And I was up in near Chicago, Great Lakes, and I took what's called a BUDS entrance exam. And that's where you have to do a swim, so many push-ups, so many sit-ups, so many pull-ups, and then a run, and everything is timed. And then based on your score, they send all of your information to Washington, D.C., and it's called, I think, a 1606-7, and they send that to D.C., and they put that in a pile of paperwork, and they figure out who's set up with the highest scores, and they send those guys out to Coronado, California. So it took me about 18 months from the time that I entered in to the military to actually get boots on the ground in Coronado, California, where SEAL training is held, to be able to have an opportunity to go through BUDS, which is basic underwater demolition / SEAL training.
So how long is that process? The whole BUDS process. So once you got to Coronado, until you're officially a SEAL.
Until you're officially a SEAL, like you go through, when you first get there, you're in fourth phase. So fourth phase can be anywhere from 2 months to 3 months, depending on when you arrive. And then you class up, and they put you in a class and they give you a class number. And then if everything works out really well for you, you're out of there probably through the whole program of pre-training and everything in about 8 to 10 months. But if you run into problems, it probably takes you about a year and a half to get through. And what I mean by problems are, you fail a physical event, or you fail a test in the classroom, or you get injured. And it's easy to get injured in SEAL training because the physical stress loads are so high.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I can't even imagine. So how many, I mean, well, not the right way to phrase it, but like, how many strikes do you get? So you said you run into some challenges before they say you're just not cutting the mustard, you're not going to be a SEAL.
Yeah, you can get a physical strike, you can get a medical roll, and I think you can get 2 strikes. After the third one, you're punching your ticket to go back to the fleet.
Wow. Okay.
And then they make you wait 2 years in order to be able to come back through and go through the process again.
Wow. Yeah. So not only is it such a mentally and physically demanding, but the pressure. I can't imagine the pressure of that as well, knowing that you don't get many. You're not going to get many shots at this, and if you goof up, you got 2 years, before you can really come back and try it again. We're going to hit a break here, guys. Again, talking with Christopher Lee Maher. You can find out more at his website, truebodyintelligence.com. You can find his book there, as well as he's got a podcast, True Body Intelligent Podcast. And also follow him on Facebook and Instagram. We'll be back on Mr. Biz Radio.
If you would like to reach hundreds of thousands of business owners every week, Mr. Biz Radio can help. Our show airs globally 7 days a week for more than 25 hours across several internet radio stations, plus 20 plus podcast platforms. Also, video exposure on the new exclusive Mr. Biz Network streaming channel, which gets blasted to 100 plus streaming platforms, and the Mr. Biz YouTube channel, and our 350,000 social media followers multiple times every week. Join Mr. Biz Nation as an advertiser by emailing us at info@MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit GetPulseTools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Check out all 3 of Mr. Biz's best-selling books at MrBizBooks.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. Again, talking here with former Navy SEAL Christopher Lee Maher. So, Christopher, so you become a SEAL, and obviously from the intro I mentioned, you started to have a bunch of different physical ailments and things like that, which has sort of led you down the path that you've kind of taken your career in. How did that all come to fruition?
Well, the pain that I had in my body showed up after I left the SEAL teams.
Oh, okay.
And I extracted myself from the community. I decided to go to college and start running track and field because I set a goal to get to the Olympic trials. And I was an Olympic dreamer. And that dream was never realized because I had a body that was riddled with pain.
What just out of curiosity, what track and field events did you specialize in?
I liked 400 meters. I liked 800 meters. I liked the 4x4. I liked the 4x8. I did the 1500 every once in a blue moon.
The 400, that's a beast. That is a beast. It's, and 800, I guess, as well, but, kind of in between that, the sprint and in any sort of distance or whatever. I think that's a whole different animal. I know we were talking before the show, you've been working with the Penn State wrestling team for several years, and we were talking about, wrestling athletes are just a different breed of athlete altogether. So
Yeah,
I'm
well, I
sorry,
was
go ahead.
going to say it's very interesting because a lot of the guys, like if you look at athletes, my feeling is the athlete that makes it the easiest through SEAL training are always swimmers, cross-country runners, and wrestlers because they're part of a team sport, but that they have that individual ability to push themselves because no one is going to pick you up off the mat when you're wrestling except yourself.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So what led from there to you sort of developing, I know all through your studies and everything, this true body intelligence method?
Pain, like literally pain. Like when you're like pain sucks. Like anyone who's had debilitating, back pain or neck stiffness or knee pain, it affects everything you do. It affects the way that you walk. It affects the way that you sit down. It affects your sleep. It affects your mood. You end up being anxious. You end up being tired. Like pain affects everything.
Well, and I
And
can't even
so,
imagine, Chris, for being a high performing athlete. I had some success in my athletic career many moons ago, but the most frustrating thing is when it's taken away from you, your sport or your event or whatever it might be, and when you're in pain and you can't train and you can't pursue those goals of, getting to Olympic trials and things like that. I mean, the mental aspect of that, putting aside the awfulness of the pain, physical pain, the mental aspect of that for a high performing athlete. I mean, how did you even deal with that part of it as well?
a lot of prayer and a lot of tears. There were many nights that I broke down because I just didn't understand, right? I didn't have any idea why this was happening because the model that had been sold to me over life is work hard, never give up, and everything works out. And I was working hard, I was never giving up, and it wasn't working out for me. The opposite was happening, and I was frustrated, and I was agitated, and I was confused, and none of it really made any sense. And at the same time, it was intolerable to me that I was in pain because it didn't make any sense. It was like, well, Monday I didn't have any pain, and now Wednesday I have pain, and now I can't ever get away from it. Well, how come I didn't have it on Monday? And so I had to sort of figure out, like, what is the process of getting pain into someone's body? So I decided that I was going to figure it out, and I was going to reverse engineer the process of pain and discomfort and stiffness.
And that's what led to true body intelligence.
That's what led to true body intelligence. And so basically what I did is I took everything I learned from SEAL training and I turned it into HEAL training. Okay. And what I mean by that is I took all the effort, all of the energy, and all of the discipline that I learned in SEAL training, in boarding school, and in the SEAL teams, and I applied it to a process to be able to figure out how to put myself back together. And I investigated every single avenue that I could in order to figure out how to reduce the stress that was causing the tension that created the pain.
Hmm. Interesting. You know, just struck me. You had mentioned earlier, back in the first segment about, going to boarding school and your life was so regimented. You go to college and it's like, oh my gosh, the world is my oyster. And I'm kind of getting a theme here too, because then you end up going into the Navy and the SEALs, which I'm quite certain is very regimented. It's almost like it seems like that's the type of personality you have, is you sort of need that structure and that regiment around you. And maybe that's because of the 10 years at boarding school, that was just kind of the way of life and the way, sort of you evolved as a person. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I had imposed discipline in boarding school, right? Like it's forced. I never wanted to go to boarding school. My grandmother
I don't know many people who do.
I would have rather been home with my friends, riding my bike, playing video games. And she was like, no, you're going to boarding school. And every time I cried and complained, and she just said, Christopher, you're staying there. I'm not bringing you home. And I think what was interesting is, you're right. I went to college, and then I had all this space where there was no enforced discipline, right? And then I realized, no, I actually need structure. And then once I signed up for the military, it was different because I volunteered for that discipline,
Mm-hmm.
right? Boarding school was involuntary. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to be there. So I think the shift for me was being able to, knowing that I was volunteering for the program to go to SEAL training and SEAL teams. And so then instead of resisting discipline, I actually embraced it because it was something that I wanted.
It's an interesting contrast, though, as I think it through, especially as in your own words of how much you didn't want to go to boarding school. So again, like you said, you resisted it so much, and then fast forward a few years after you're through it, and you're like, no, you were seeking it out. Now you wanted it, and so I mean, I guess in looking back, are you glad that you were in boarding school? I mean, again, at the time, I know you weren't, but
yeah. I mean, it's a conversation that me and my brother have all the time. He comes from the perspective that, like, look, going to boarding school was the best thing that ever happened to me. And I think it's because he was much younger than me. He was 3.5. I was 7.5. So for me, I had already started to develop a sense of myself and who I was. And boarding school was going against my sense of myself. And yet, in retrospect, being much older and knowing the work ethic, the discipline, the ability to relate to others, the consistency, the development of character, I can attribute a lot of that to going to boarding school. And now in this position that I'm in, I'm grateful.
yeah, I can imagine. I mean, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I would assume that boarding school discipline you learned and the resilience you learned there probably helped you a great deal with becoming a SEAL and going through BUDS and things like that. Guys, we're going to hit a break here again, talking with Christopher Lee Maher. We'll put this in the show notes, all the socials and his website as well. But come back, we're going to find out how to release some stress.
How would you like to have direct access to Mr. Biz to help you run your business more profitably and more efficiently? At MrBizSolutions.com, you get live access to not only Mr. Biz, but also several of his hand-picked and trusted business experts, each with 20-plus years of experience to help you optimally manage and grow your business. That's just the start of where Mr. Biz Solutions begins. Learn more at MrBizSolutions.com. That's MrBizSolutions.com.
Attention, Mr. Biz Nation. We have an exclusive offer just for you. Get lifetime access to scarcity countdown timers and logic links for only $69. Yes, you heard it right. Only $69. These tools will add urgency to your email campaigns and website pages, helping you increase conversions, sales, and capture more leads. Don't miss this incredible opportunity. Visit getpulsetools.com now and take your business to new heights.
Got a question for Mr. Biz you want answered on air? Email it to info@mrbizsolutions.com. Now, once again, here's Mr. Biz.
All right, welcome back to the show. We're talking with Christopher Lee Maher. You can find out more at his website, truebodyintelligence.com. Again, we'll put that in the show notes as well. Follow him on Facebook, Instagram. You can also on his website find his book there, as well as he's got a podcast, True Body Intelligence Podcast. So Christopher, you've gone through this. You've got all this training, decade plus of training, and you know developed the True Body Intelligence method. What are some things that you found that you know the stress side of things? What are some simple things that maybe we can do to help relieve some stress? You got some like quick practical things that we can maybe start to implement?
Yeah, I think the easiest thing to do is in the moment. And what I mean by that is this. Everyone has to breathe, right? And so when we get stressed, we start taking shallow, shorter breaths, right? It's just something that naturally happens.
Mm-hmm.
So often, us being athletes, the guys that are performing the best, guess what's happening? When they're stressed, they're breathing the deepest, meaning they're breathing relative to the amount of stress that they're feeling. If you don't do that, what ensues is anxiety. The second you recognize that you have anxiety, you're already behind the bell curve, okay? So what you need to do, you need to just take a seat or extract yourself from the meeting. Maybe what's going to happen is you have to you have to present a presentation. And so you're getting really stressed before it's your time. Take a bathroom break, go in the bathroom, sit down or find a room that you can go to where you can take a seat, close your eyes, put your fingertips together, sit there and take 9 relaxing breaths. And as soon as you start to do that, you're going to start to interfere with that stress response, which is the fight or flight response that people are familiar with, right? And as soon as you interfere with that stress response, now instead of having a foggy, anxious mind, you're going to have a mind that's clear. And you're going to have emotions that are grounded. And you're going to have a body that now, instead of being stiff, is really comfortable. And I think that's the first most important step that you can take.
What are in your studies, Christopher, what would you say is the primary cause of stress for most people in regards to external versus internal? So the external environment causes people more stress, or do you think that people cause stress themselves internally?
I think, how do I say this? They're both going on simultaneously. What I mean by that is if you have a body that's full of tension and full of stress that's unresolved, when you get into a situation that's beyond your capacity to process, that situation is going to be a mirror that's going to show you how much internal stress that you have, okay? But if you've taken time to reduce your lifetime accumulated stress loads and your tension loads, then what's going to happen is when you get into that environment that's, let's say, overwhelming for most people, you're actually going to be very calm and grounded. And so the most important thing to do is to reduce your lifetime accumulated stress loads and tension loads internally, because when you get into these bigger environments, you want to be able to perform at the highest level. And look, in reality, everything is a performance, whether you're a teacher, whether you're a coach, whether you're an athlete, whether you work at an automotive shop, whether you work serving burgers at McDonald's. Everything is a performance.
It's interesting, yeah, and I can see that because I was even kind of reflecting a little as you were saying that, Christopher, is that lifetime accumulation of stress. If you've got something, and again, I'm speaking for myself, if you got something that's kind of hanging over my head, that's not like a chronic situation, but something that's, man, I'm kind of concerned about this. It's almost like the way I would almost view it is, and I'm maybe just saying it a little bit differently than you did, is you're already starting on a stress scale 1 to 10. You're already at a 4. You walk around at a 4, and when you get in those overwhelming situations, you can go from a 4 to 8 pretty quickly. Whereas if you're at a 0 and you go up 4 notches, you're only at a 4, right? Is that sort of? I'm probably saying it very simplistically, but
No. And what you're saying is true. Like from my research, and I've done 100,000 hours of practical research into the effects of stress, and the average person, whether they're 7 or they're 77, is about at an 8.6 on an average day.
wow.
So the most prudent action that someone could take would obviously be to drop it to a 3 or a 4. Because if you could drop it to a 3 or a 4, you're only going to go up a small amount relative to the environment that you're in.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. What's so the breathing and calming breaths, the 9 breaths. What are some other things that people can do, maybe when they find themselves in those situations, other than, or maybe in addition to the breathing?
I mean, I think the second most important thing is you can simply tell someone that you're overwhelmed. And by doing that, you remove the pink elephant in the room, right? So if Barb in the corner is stressed, we can see she's stressed, but she doesn't say anything, and she keeps it all inside, and she keeps pretending on the outside that she's okay, then that interferes with her ability to perform. I think it's very easy just to pull whoever you feel comfortable with aside and say, hey, look, I'm kind of stressed by this situation. Maybe you're a dad and your son is playing in the national football championship for college, and he plays for Notre Dame, and he's the quarterback. And if he just pretends that he's okay, then when he gets in that huddle, he's going to make mistakes. But if he pulls the receiver aside and goes, man, I'm a little stressed, and the guy goes, look, man, you got this, everything's going to be okay, then that reinforcement allows him to know, just relax. And so I think that's the second most important thing that you could do.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, it's almost like spreading the wealth a little bit, as far as spreading out that, and like you said, especially in a team situation where you can get a reassuring voice from a teammate or a colleague or a coworker or a family member, whatever it might be, that maybe that's the simple thing that you just hearing that from another person. And in that scenario you mentioned, the wide receiver can say, man, don't worry about this. We practiced this play we're about to run 200 times this season. Like, this is nothing, right? And so maybe that gives you a little bit more of that sort of, not only you get it off your chest, but also you get sort of a centering thing, like, hey, I forgot about that. Yeah, I'm ready for this. I'm prepared, especially as an athlete. I'm prepared for this situation, even though it seems stressful at the time.
Yeah, and when you're running a business, that business is a performance, right? Like, if you realize guys and gals that run successful businesses are really good performers. And so if you want to run a business that's more successful, you have to implement these things like breath and transparency to help you be more successful.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're running out of time here. You got maybe one more, Christopher, we can do? The breaths and the transparency. Is there anything else maybe that quickly we could use as well?
Yeah, I think just getting into a simple meditative state, just go get in a quiet space, sit down, calm your mind, quiet everything, remind yourself that you're here for a reason and that you have purpose. I think that will help you.
I love it. I love it. Easy, practical things that we can all do in everyday life. As you're experiencing some of these things, like Christopher gave a bunch of examples of, where you could be feeling that type of stress and everything. Christopher, great show. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Guys, again, truebodyintelligence.com. You can find his book and his podcast there, Facebook and Instagram. Follow him there. Appreciate you guys watching. Have a fantastic rest of your week. And don't forget, as always, cash flow is king.
To become part of Mr. Biz Nation, follow him on all social media platforms or never miss a show by going to MrBizRadio.com. If you prefer free video content, visit the Mr. Biz YouTube channel or check out his streaming channel, which is available on 100 plus streaming platforms at MrBizNetwork.com.